On the programme it's quite interesting because they're talking about the fact that nothing is taught about it at school, yet they learn all about sex, childbirth. Not everybody has a child. Well, only half the population could have a child, and so on, and not every woman chooses to have a child. Yet every woman goes through the menopause, yet we know very little, we're taught very little about it. And it feels a little bit like you can't ask, you don't talk about it. It's kind of a bit of a taboo subject, apart from at Friday morning coffee when we talk about it plenty.
First of all, there's recognition that somebody is going through the menopause, and often women will say that they're struggling with memory, with word finding, mood swings, often putting weight on in the middle section that they haven't experienced before, and often it's the emotional ups and downs that people come with.
But emotional, that kind of the yo-yoing, the symptoms that, you know, the person that we kind of go to bed at night necessarily wasn't the person waking up in the morning. The mood swings were and are really quite difficult, and so despite yourself you can feel quite sad and anxious, and that's quite debilitating at times.
And usually it's because women in that age group, they're usually juggling busy jobs, teenage children and often elderly parents, and women are absolute masters of juggling that, but then something happens, something goes wrong, and all the balls come tumbling down, and with the added complication of hormonal swings, that can lead to a bit of a crisis. And
the real bugger of menopause is that when you can have moments of feeling like your old self, and you can feel quite confident to say things about how you're feeling, like having a hot flush or a menopausal moment or whatever your phrase is, but then other times it kind of really go into yourself, become quite withdrawn, and so other times I just would be really self-conscious and not able to say that, and become quite distressed privately.
The main symptoms I found are to be energy level swings, so I never know what I'm going to feel like doing, and I've never known that before because I've had energy, so I could always just go and do whatever I wanted to do, and I knew that I'd recover relatively okay, but now I've just got no idea.
Yeah. Sometimes just talking it through is enough in a confidential space, where a woman can get it off her chest what's happening to her, and just a recognition that she's normal actually, and lots of women do struggle with it.
I think the first real symptom I started to notice was on the intellectual level. Actually, I started to become quite forgetful in my late 40s, and I'm a really highly functioning woman, professional woman, and I found chairing meetings, I couldn't remember people's names, sometimes I'd have lapses in memory, and I think I've had to accommodate that quite a lot over the last 8 years, and that's really quite distressing and worrying and scary.
And as somebody who so far thinks that they're relatively fine and they might be alright, then I think maybe empathy is lacking for those who really, really suffer, because it's a mental. It's not a physical, you can't see it, apart from saggy boobs and saggy belly, you can't see it. And so, yeah, it's one of those alongside, you know, depression or eating disorder or anything that means that you can't function at work as well as you'd like to be able to.
Seen as, because we celebrate youth in our society, when actually we should be celebrating experience and ageing and knowledge and the advantages of getting older, and perhaps starting a new partnership or being with the same partner or being on our own. You know, that's the time that we can start to feel more comfortable in our own skin.
And then of course you do think you're coming through it, and some symptoms abate, like the hot sweats. And then suddenly, you know, something creeps in again, like the anxiety, the low-level anxiety. And they're the kind of symptoms I think that nobody particularly talks about. So not necessarily depression, although I think sometimes you can feel like you do, you know, your mood is low, but actually kind of symptoms like that low-level anxiety that just, you know, comes and grabs you from nowhere, even when you're not feeling anxious. You're watching the television and suddenly, you know, you kind of get an anxious tummy or an anxious feeling in your head or an anxious thought, and that's it, it spirals from there.